Max Stanton had always considered himself a man of simple tastes. After leaving the military, he settled into a quiet life on a small colony on the outskirts of Earth's reach, far away from the hustle and bustle of intergalactic politics. He worked at a shelter for orphans, mostly human children who had lost their families during the endless wars and disasters that seemed to plague the galaxy. Max had grown fond of the job. He was good with children and found comfort in the routine of caring for them. Little did he know, one child would change his life forever. One cold evening, as the stars twinkled far above in the sky, the shelter received a new arrival. It was a child, but not one Max had ever seen before. A small girl, no more than 6 years old, with translucent skin and strange glowing eyes that shimmered in the light. Her hair was silver, almost white, and she was as quiet as a shadow, clutching a small bundle tightly in her arms. She looked so fragile, so out of place, Max's heart went out to her instantly. "Hey there, little one," Max said softly as he knelt down to her level, trying to comfort her. "What's your name?" The girl looked up at him with wide, fearful eyes but said nothing. Her silence worried Max. He gently took her hand and led her inside. She didn't resist, but her fear was palpable. Over the next few days, Max tried everything to get the girl to speak, but she remained silent. She didn't eat much either and seemed lost in her own little world. Max knew she had to be from somewhere far away. Her features were too unusual to be from Earth. His curiosity grew. Who was she? Why had she been left here all alone? The shelter had no record of her arrival. No papers, no official identification. It was as though she had appeared from nowhere. One morning, Max walked into the room to find the girl sitting at a table, sketching something on a piece of paper. Her drawings were beautiful, intricate designs that Max couldn't even begin to understand. The patterns were complex, as if they held a deeper meaning. Max leaned over her shoulder to take a closer look, but when she noticed him, she quickly covered the page with her small hands. "I'm sorry," Max said, backing away. "I didn't mean to disturb you." The girl slowly uncovered the page and turned it toward him, showing a beautiful drawing of a strange, glowing structure that seemed to be alive. The design seemed alien to Max, like something he had never seen before. The girl's eyes glowed softly, and Max could feel something strange in the air, a faint buzz, almost like an electrical charge. Max wasn't sure what to make of it. He had seen many things in his years of service, but nothing like this. This girl, this alien child, was different from anything he had ever encountered. A few days later, as Max was trying to find some information about the girl, a message came through on the shelter's communication system. The message was brief but alarming. It was a signal from an unknown source with a powerful encryption code. Max was used to dealing with such things in his military days, so he quickly decoded it. What he read nearly made him drop the communicator. The message was addressed to the shelter, but the sender wasn't human. It came from an alien species that Max recognized immediately, the Zerathians, one of the most powerful and feared species in the galaxy. The message was clear. The child must be returned immediately. She was the heir to the Zerathian throne, and her disappearance had caused a crisis within their empire. If she wasn't returned, there would be consequences. Max's mind raced. This child who had been living in silence at his shelter was not just an orphan. She was royalty, and not just any royalty, but the heir to one of the most powerful alien empires in the galaxy. He had no idea how to handle this. The next morning, as Max sat in his office staring at the message, the shelter's door opened. A tall, imposing alien stepped in. He had dark blue skin, sharp, angular features, and eyes that gleamed with cold authority. He wore the insignia of the Zerathian Empire. "You are Max Stanton?" the alien asked, his voice deep and commanding. Max stood, trying to keep his calm. "I am, and you are?" "I am Commander Varnock of the Zerathian fleet. I have come to collect the child." Max's heart skipped a beat. "What child?" he asked, trying to sound casual, but his voice betrayed his nerves. The alien raised an eyebrow. "The one you are hiding. The one named Kari. She is the last heir to the Zerathian throne. Do you think we do not know where she is?" Max stood tall, his military instincts kicking in. "I'm afraid I can't just hand her over without knowing more. Who exactly are you to make demands on my shelter?" Varnock's eyes narrowed, and he took a step closer. "I am the representative of the Zerathian Empire. Your shelter has been housing one of the most important beings in the galaxy, and you have no idea of the consequences if you refuse to cooperate." Max's mind raced. He couldn't just give up Carrie. She was a child and she had been through enough already. She wasn't some political pawn to be handed over to an empire, no matter how powerful it was. "I'll need to speak with her first," Max said, trying to buy some time. "I'm not just going to let you take her without her consent." Varnok's expression remained unreadable. "Very well. But know this. If you delay this process any longer, the Zarathian fleet will take more drastic measures. And believe me, human, you do not want that." The commander turned and left, leaving Max standing in his office, deep in thought. Max didn't know much about the Zarathians, but he knew enough to understand that they were not a species that took kindly to being crossed. Their empire spanned many systems and they controlled vast armies and fleets. If they wanted Carrie back, they would not stop until they got her. Max walked into the room where Carrie was sitting, still absorbed in her drawings. He could see that she was growing more comfortable in the shelter, but now her entire life was about to be turned upside down. She was the heir to an empire, and her mother, the queen, was coming for her. "Carrie," Max said softly, kneeling beside her, "I need to tell you something. There are some people who are looking for you, people who say you're very important." Carrie looked up at him, her glowing eyes filled with confusion and fear. She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. It was as if she understood what was happening but couldn't fully process it. Max took a deep breath. "I'm not going to let anything happen to you, okay? We'll figure this out together." Just as he said those words, a loud alarm went off in the shelter, echoing through the walls. Max's heart sank. He knew that it was only a matter of time before things started to spiral out of control. Max stared at the screen, his heart racing. The message had just finished transmitting, and there it was, Queen Valora's face, stern and unyielding, her golden eyes burning through the display. Behind her, the massive fleet of Zarathian warships floated like a storm ready to descend on Earth's colony. The Queen's voice echoed through the small communication room as Max stood frozen. "This is Queen Valora of the Zarathian Empire," she said, her tone cold but regal. "I am on my way to reclaim what is mine, my daughter Kari, and I expect full cooperation." Max swallowed hard. This wasn't what he had expected at all. He had thought the Zarathians would demand Kari's return, perhaps with some military threats or a show of force. But this, a marriage proposal? He glanced over at Kari, who was sitting quietly in the corner, her glowing eyes filled with confusion and fear. She had no idea what was going on, and Max knew he had to protect her. But how? What was he supposed to do now? As the transmission ended, Max sat down heavily in the chair, his mind spinning. The Queen had given him an ultimatum. Marry her and Kari would be returned safely, or refuse and face the wrath of the entire Zarathian fleet. Max didn't even know where to begin. "Max?" Kari's soft voice cut through his thoughts. He turned to find her standing in front of him, her small hands wringing together in uncertainty. "Kari, you don't have to worry about this," Max said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'm not going to let anyone hurt you. We'll figure this out. I promise." But deep inside, Max had no idea how they were going to get out of this one. Later that evening, Max sat alone in the shelter's kitchen, his mind racing. He hadn't slept properly in days. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the looming shadows of the Zarathian fleet overhead, ready to strike. He thought about Kari and how much he had come to care for her. She wasn't just some child from another planet. She was his responsibility now, and he couldn't let anything happen to her. Just as he was beginning to think through his options, the shelter's door opened. Max looked up in surprise to see a familiar face. Commander Varnok, the Zarathian officer who had threatened him earlier, had returned. This time he was accompanied by several others, officials perhaps, or high-ranking officers from the Zarathian fleet. "You should not have delayed this process," Varnok said, his voice low and gravelly. He didn't seem angry, but there was a distinct sense of warning in his tone. "The Queen will be here soon, and you will comply with her wishes." Max stood up, his fists clenched. "I'm not marrying anyone," he said firmly. "Not her, not anyone." Varnok tilted his head slightly as if considering Max's words. "You misunderstand, human," he said. "The Queen does not offer a choice. You are the guardian of the heir, whether you like it or not. She is the future of the Empire, and her rule must be secured through union. That is the way of the Zarathian people." Max shook his head. "I don't care about your empire. I'm not going to be part of your political games. I just want to protect Kari." Varnok's expression softened for a moment, almost like he was sympathizing with Max. You are a man of honor, Max Stanton. I can see that. But there is more at stake here than you realize. The Queen's power is not absolute. There are factions within the Zerathian Empire who would see her fall from power. By marrying her, you are ensuring that the throne remains secure. It is not just a political move. It is a matter of survival. For Carrie, for you, and for the galaxy. Max felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He hadn't asked for any of this. All he wanted was to live a peaceful life and help children who needed a home. He certainly hadn't signed up to be the pawn in some galactic struggle for power. But he couldn't ignore the truth in Varnok's words. The Zerathian Empire was vast and powerful. If he didn't play along, the consequences would be severe not just for him but for Carrie as well. I don't want to hurt anyone, Max said quietly. But I won't let Carrie become a pawn in some empire's game. Varnok's eyes softened. Then you must trust the Queen. She has her reasons and you will see that in time. But if you refuse, there will be no peace. The Empire will demand her return, and they will take her, whether you want that or not. The next day, the sky above the colony darkened as the Zerathian fleet arrived. 100 ships, each larger and more powerful than anything Max had ever seen, hovered over the city. The sheer size and power of the fleet were terrifying. Max stood in the shelter's courtyard, looking up at the ships, feeling a chill crawl up his spine. Carrie appeared beside him, her tiny hand slipping into his. "What's going to happen, Max?" she asked softly. Max looked down at her and smiled, though the fear gnawed at his insides. "I'm not sure, Carrie, but whatever happens, I'll make sure you're safe." Just as he spoke, the ground trembled slightly as a shuttle descended from one of the massive ships above. The shuttle's door opened and a tall figure stepped out. It was Queen Valora herself, her golden eyes gleaming with an almost otherworldly glow. She was dressed in elaborate robes that shimmered like stars, and her presence seemed to command the very air around her. "Max Stanton," she said, her voice carrying across the courtyard. "I have come to collect my daughter." Max's heart pounded in his chest as he stepped forward to face the Queen. He had never felt so small in his life. She was beautiful, powerful, and terrifying all at once. Her gaze lingered on him, and for a moment he thought she might simply demand that Carrie come with her. But instead she spoke again. "I understand your reluctance, human," Valora said, her voice smooth like velvet, yet laced with authority. "But know this, I offer you more than just an alliance. I offer you a place in the Zerathian Empire, a position of power. Marry me and together we will rule this galaxy as one. Refuse, and you will risk everything, including the life of your adopted daughter." Max's mind raced. He had no choice, not really. The Zerathians were too powerful to fight directly, and Carrie was too important. If he refused, they would take her and he'd never see her again. But marrying the Queen, he felt sick at the thought. Still, Max knew he couldn't lose Carrie. Not now. Not after everything they had been through together. "Fine," Max said finally, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside him. "I'll do it. But I'll do it on my terms." Valora's smile was a slow, knowing curve. "As you wish, Max Stanton. You will be my husband, and together we will bring peace to the galaxy." Cliffhanger. Max knew his life was about to change in ways he couldn't even imagine, as Valora extended her hand to him, ready to begin the formal union. A hidden truth began to settle in Max's heart. This marriage wasn't just the beginning of his future with Carrie. It was the start of something much bigger. Something that could change the course of the entire galaxy. But as Max took Valora's hand, he felt a cold shiver run down his spine. There was something about the Queen, something darker that Max wasn't ready to face yet, and that, he realized, was the real danger.